All right. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, we're live. We're live. So I'm looking at the thing. It says in stream. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, we are
I
live on
know.
here. Sorry about that. I was telling my mom, we are the most technologically crazy. We're not up to date with techie stuff. So what you get is real people sharing that we are really not fully up to date on technology when it comes to anything on the internet basically, but we're here to share information about pet travel, and we're sharing it with it's our passion, and we're sharing it with our viewers. So bear with us if we have a little lapse, little where's this or whatever. I know we've been doing this over a year, but this is not something that comes second knowledge to us. So but greetings everyone. Greta, go ahead and take over.
Welcome everyone to another Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant. We are here, as Dr. Bryant indicated, to share our news and reviews and tips and all that good stuff with traveling with not only your pets, but any animals really. And most of our conversations are based around airlines, but we do get some conversations with ground transportation and things to that nature. But the young lady that we're going to have today, you guys have seen already. She is one of our favorites, and she is a fan favorite. Miss Rochelle Watkins Rogers will be coming in today as our guest, and she shares some phenomenal tips for everyone to be aware of when traveling during these colder months. But let's talk with Dr. Bryant and catch up with her because she just got back from the Hero Dog Awards, which you
Yes,
all can
yes.
see very soon. I believe it's airing November, is it 27th? Or do you know?
Thanksgiving.
Okay,
Thanksgiving.
it's during Thanksgiving on
Yes.
A&E. So make sure
Yes.
you all watch that. But Dr. Bryant was there live and got to meet the
Yes.
celebrities and the dogs that were the finalists. So tell us all about it.
Oh, I had a fabulous time. I was actually, they deemed me as a chief veterinarian for the event. So I was there a day early before the whole gala event that it's going to be shown on A&E channel. I believe it's 1 o'clock on Thanksgiving Day. But check please. But it's going to be aired then. But I was the chief veterinarian for the event. So I was there early, able to meet the pet owners and the contestants, and it was awesome. Every dog, I mean, they're amazing. Just Maverick, who won, it was very majestic. The pet owner for him, their whole initiative was based upon developing services like having a therapy dog for USO for soldiers and everything. So great initiative. So one thing that I want folks to know about the Hero Dog Awards, it's not like a popularity contest. Best dog. It's really each of the pet owners and their dogs actually have a initiative or focus that they're working on. So it's just blew me away. But all the dogs were sweethearts. Everyone got along very well. I was very touched by meeting Raina's mom, and I believe her name is Kristen. I'm really bad with names, but Raina's mom was awesome. Raina unfortunately passed before she was nominated as being one of the shelter hero dogs. Raina she was blind and deaf, Australian Shepherd, like a double merle, they call it. And because of it being a double merle, she was blind and deaf, but she lived to 13 great years and had basically impacted a lot of people in her life. So during her lifespan. So awesome meeting her, hearing her story. Her mom is awesome. So just a lot of rewarding things as far as that. Now, as far as the gala event, had an outstanding time. I'll be honest, beautiful band, great event. And I'm looking forward to the next event with American Humane.
I'm sure everybody's wondering what celebrities did you get to see?
I saw Christy Brinkley. I didn't meet her, but I saw her from a distance. Wow, she's beautiful. Carson Kressley. I walked by him I was like walking right by him, like, oh my God, it's Carson and everything. But no, I'm more of the shy person when it comes to celebrities. I figure they don't want to be bothered by me. But to be honest with you, I'm sure they would have been open to say hello and have a photo. It's just my shyness sometimes just takes overboard. But either way, saw both of them. Who else was there? Ben Carson was there. I was surprised to see. And there's probably a few others. It was this really, really tall gentleman that I was just like, is that, at first I thought it was, what's his name? At first I thought it was, is that Shaq? Because he was extremely tall, but I was like, no, I don't think that's Shaq. But either way, it was a really wonderful event, really met some really interesting people. I love the fact that I got to interact more with folks on the governing board of American Humane, which I am a member. So it was an opportunity for really to connect with some other board members too. So I had an outstanding time.
That's fantastic. I know that if people want to go to our social media, either our Facebook or Instagram, both of them, When Pets Fly, we have pictures from the event when Dr. Bryant was there that she took of herself, as well as some of the celebrities she had come across, as well as all of the information and flyers that the Hero Dog Awards shared about each of the finalists. We have that on there too. So if you guys want to go back there and check that out before you watch the show, which will air on Thanksgiving on A&E, it's really touching because, just the stories, I don't even know how they could even choose a winner because, every dog had a phenomenal story to them. So make sure you can visit herodogawards.org, I think it is, where you can read more in depth about them. So that's great. I'm glad you had a chance to go and be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome, and really an outstanding opportunity. I thanked Robin Gansert from American Humane for allowing me to just participate. I had one comment that was made from Kristen, Raina's mom. She sent me a message through Instagram just thanking me for being open to her, listening to her about her story. Because, I mean, think about it. She was at the event representing her dog, but her dog had passed. So she said, in a sense, paraphrasing, I made her feel more comfortable with being there because I was open to her, to listen to her story and just hear more about Raina. And after watching the video of Raina that they developed, I was like, man, I wish I would have missed that. I wish I would have met that dog is what I thought afterwards. And I shared that with Kristen. So,
that's fantastic. It's so unfortunate the dog had to pass, and I'm sure that they did some kind of really nice tribute to Raina, and I'm glad you were there to help Raina's mother feel so comforted and comfortable for being out in public and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's hard. Well, can you believe, I cannot believe, number one, that Thanksgiving is next week. So that's the first thing. And then number two, besides today, we only have 2 more Facebook Lives scheduled for the year. So 12/1 is our next one, and that will actually be a pre-recording of a Facebook Live that we're doing with Canine Jets. So we're going to be talking to an airline that is a private jet just for our 4-legged, 2-legged friends that can go and fly in the sky in comfort. I was just happy to know that any dog, a dog of any size can get on a jet. So that's what made me excited. And then the week after that, on 12/8, we have the Pet Advocacy Group. So that's the group we're going to end our year of Facebook Lives. And then we start fresh in January with a whole new slew of Facebook Lives with Dr. Nelva Bryant. I just wanted to say real quick to people, if you have suggestions on topics you would either like to hear more about that we've started on, or topics we haven't covered that you would like to hear about, please let us know. We will get the experts, or you can even tell us about experts to bring on here so that we can get you more information that will help you raise a happier, healthier pet.
I love that. Yeah, definitely. Because again, we're going to continue on. There's going to be some repeat folks, just like Rochelle Watkins here, Rochelle with us. And I'm also hoping I can get some colleagues within USDA animal welfare on. And again, just more information to share to get you ready for pet travel or just learning animal transportation regulations. Because again, it is regulated. And my goal for everyone is really for when you're transporting a pet or any animal that is second, is not where you're like, oh, I didn't, or you hear say, I wasn't aware. It's just second knowledge that you know that there are certain requirements you have to meet before you travel by air or even by land. So that's my goal, just to get that awareness out.
Absolutely. Well, it is time for us to bring on our special guest, Ms. Rochelle Watkins Rogers, and we'll be able to talk more, actually find out what she's been up to, and then get into our great conversation.
Hi.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, hello, hello.
Live
How are
from
you?
Sarasota. I've made a move. I'm now living in Sarasota, and
Nice.
I recently attended a couple of conferences. I was invited to speak for the USDA on animal transport, and I was also at the AZA, Association of Zoos and Aquariums, as a speaker and hosted, moderated a session at their annual conference on animal transport, and was very lucky to have Dr. Bryant as well as some other very elite speakers, including some wildlife agencies, USDA, Fish and Wildlife, Frank Cohn, who's also an instructor at the animal transport course. So I'm very excited. It was a very good conference, and I was really happy about the USDA conference or symposium because it was the first one that they've ever had.
Yeah.
And they're looking at doing a lot of changes with their regulations, because I was surprised to hear they haven't changed anything in 70 years. I thought 70 or 17, 70 years. And a lot of people heard about the history of transport and the history of their regulations. And it was very interesting to hear all of that, because so many people have been transporting animals for decades and never knew, how those regulations actually started out. And it started out with a dog, a family dog, so, but yeah, so that was this past, it was August and September. And then moving up here to Sarasota, and very excited about living up here. There's so many things to do, and I have so many friends up here, and it's been really a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. So I know that we have. Go ahead.
You want me to go? No, I was just going to say, yes, it was wonderful seeing you at the USDA Transportation Symposium, and then following up in Ohio with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums meetings. You guys don't realize she sets up these meetings with AZA as far as the platform. She's a moderator, and I don't know, again, I have not attended anything else but this session through the conference, but I can tell you without even going to others, this is probably the best program that's developed. She just has everything organized. We all sit at the panel table and boom, 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 down the line, just hit everything that a person would need from a curator, from, different levels, in a zoo and animal industry and everything, but she just hits everything that's needed. And I just applaud every time, we're doing, I'm like, that's amazing. You're doing an outstanding job putting together a panel discussion.
Thank you so much. It's from years of doing this work. I've been very lucky to work with a lot of really good people. I've had a lot of great mentors. And now that I'm retired, I have time to look back on these things and think about it, and also have time to approach people and go back and pick and choose the cream of the crop, and and I really like being able to use those sessions as training tools for people. And you get approached afterwards, and people are looking for information, and so that we also created a listserv for professionals
Mhm.
that are in the industry that are shipping animals, because things change so much, especially in our industry. We're a very highly regulated industry in the zoo and aquarium field. And, sometimes they change the forms and they require more information or different information. Or if the regulations change, then with this August, birds were included. So
Right.
that's a whole taxa of animals that never had been regulated under USDA before. So zoos had to switch gears, and now there's new things that they had to document or train their staff to do that had never been taught to their staff before. I mean,
Mhm.
they were always doing the right thing anyway, but now they had to meet requirements of regulations. So that's a very detailed, structured thing that they had to do that wasn't being done before. So, and they're still, evolving. The regulations and rules and protocols and policies are new. And so there may be changes coming down the road for some of those. USDA may be looking at some of these things and saying, that didn't quite hit the mark the way we intended it
Right.
to. And we may need to revise that or add something or take something away from that. So, and it's all based on their experiences with the industries, because you have different levels. You have private, you have public, you have corporate, all different types of, and then there's private people like just pet owners that have birds that get them
Mhm.
from pet shops. Pet shops are
Mhm.
regulated also. And the only people that aren't are people that have a small number. It's called a de minimis. And there's a de minimis number for, I think it's like 6 animals or less. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on that number, but it's a very small number of animals, and you're not exhibiting them or whatever, that you don't have to be regulated. So, it's very technical stuff. So you want to make sure that you know the regulations so that you're not getting in trouble.
Yeah. Well, one thing I noticed with the bird welfare with USDA that they brought out, I mean, I'm happy they added them in there. The only thing they didn't touch upon too much is as far as the container requirements and things like that. And I really believe that's something that needs to be updated. How they've been doing things over the years, because trust me, I have commercial bird shippers will say, we've been doing this the same way for 40 years. And guess what? Probably wasn't in the best interest for that animal. And it's based upon the fact that because USDA didn't have the regulations for them, and it went under the radar, but wasn't in the
Right.
best interest for the animals to be transported that way. We need to really start looking into that more and everything.
Yeah, and people may not realize this, but there's a whole other entity that regulates shipping containers. It's the
Yes.
International Animal Transport Association, and that's like a professional organization, like aquariums of and zoos, have their professional organizations. The airlines have their professional
Right.
organization that oversees them and accredits them or certifies them.
Yep.
And only 80% of the airlines are members of that organization. So not
Right.
all of the airlines are members of that organization. And so you may assume the airline that you're working with or sending your animal on is a member and following those same protocols or policies. They may have to follow them, but they may not be implementing them or following up or teaching their staff the same
Right.
way as a member airline is.
See, and I love that you brought that up, because again, with as far as what Delta, what we do is we're following IATA, the International Air Transport Association. We're following their guidelines for the shipping containers. They might say, well, such and such airline doesn't do this. Well, they may not be a member of that, number one. And so that's why they're not doing it. But for the best interest for that animal, you need to follow IATA, their live animals regulations, because we know animal welfare has been considered as far, at least going towards that container requirement. So just be aware
Right.
of it. So if airline is more stringent with the container requirements. Don't view it as a negative. View it as a positive towards animal welfare, because we want to make sure the animals get to their destination safely. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I
So
figured while you guys were talking about the containers and the crates, there was a banner to bring up
Sure.
for crate prep for transport. So why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So
Do you guys see the banner? Because I don't see it showing on my screen.
I see it.
You do? Okay, good.
Yes.
So in the zoo industry, most animals are conditioned in some form or another for being moved around, either in the zoo, from their exhibit to the vet clinic, or for transport, because we transport animals routinely for reproductive reasons, genetic reasons, display reasons, and husbandry reasons. And so they're trained to go into a crate, or if it's an animal that is not trained, they are immobilized. Like a tiger might be immobilized, put in the crate, and then it's not moved until the animal's back up again, because you don't want to transport an animal that's they call it knocked out, immobilized, because it's dangerous for them to be transported that way. Mm-hmm. So crate training. Then once the animal's in the crate, you want to make sure that that crate has the proper safeguards to keep the animal warm. Because if you're shipping an animal in cold weather, it's got to have windbreaks. So you want to have like burlap or something like that over those wire openings, so that it acts as like a windbreak. And also it gives the animal privacy, so they feel like, oh, I can close the blinds if I want to. You don't want to be in your bedroom with the windows open. If people think about their own home and their room, you don't want the windows open. You don't feel safe like that. So they want the windows, the blinds closed. And then inside you want to have a fluffy comforter. They want to have bedding that they feel secure and safe in. It's got to be absorbent. You don't want something in there that's going to get wet, and then they're going to get wet or messy. And the liquid has to go into something that it's not going to leak out of the shipping container, because if it leaks out of the container and gets into the plane, it's actually dangerous, and the plane all the electrical wiring and everything is under where the crates are in the cargo area. Mm-hmm. So it could bring the plane down if that container leaks into that area of the plane. So secure, leak proof. And then it's also for exotic species, if it's an international travel, what you put in that crate is also regulated. Certain types of wood are used. There's a product called wood wool that is not able to be used in certain countries. And it looks like spaghetti, but what it is it's wood that's been made into a product that's like, it looks like spaghetti, but it's like, it comes in bales like hay, and you can put that in there. It's super absorbent. But like I said, some countries will not allow you to come into that country with that type of a bedding. So a lot of times they'll use shredded paper, or corn cob is also used. And you have to use something that's safe in case the animal ingests it, that they don't choke on it, that it's not toxic to them, or that they're not going to get a blockage because they could die in transit. And then, it's like I said, the crate has to be, leak proof.
Oh yeah, there's so many things to consider.
Even wrap the bottom of the crate with a plastic, and USDA will seal it, and that seal isn't broken until it's inspected on the other end where it's received.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot to consider. You're talking more about zoo animals and exotic animals being transported, but there's a lot to consider when you're during this cold weather, just to make sure the animals are comfortable. Another thing you could do too is the time of transit or your booking. I always say, think about it. It's in the wintertime, it's coldest in the morning, warms up midday, then it cools off again at night. So probably try to arrange for travel during the mid part of the day when it's the warmest for the animals and everything to hopefully prevent
right.
exposure.
And if you're, if you're flying an animal from the East Coast to the West Coast, could have up to a 3-hour time difference. So you have to take that into consideration for your shipping logistics. When you're talking to the airline, from the time you put the animal in the crate, there could be up to 3 to 4 hours before it leaves, because you have to get the animal there in a certain amount of time before it's loaded,
right,
before the flight takes off, then the flight, then it's unloaded, then the other zoo picks it up. So the flight time is the shortest part of the transport. Then there's a ground transport to and from the airport. So, the animal has to be in that crate for a while. So that's another reason why they really have to be comfortable in that crate. And so the logistics of all of that, the people have to know when to get the animal to the airport, when is cargo open, how long does it take me to get there, where do I go, and know where, so that they're not going to get lost on the way and be late for their flight. So there's a lot of staff training that has to go on. You can't just hand the animal off to somebody and go, hey, take this animal to the airport. There's training that has to go on prior to an animal being shipped out. And that's all stuff that is invisible. People don't see all of that stuff that goes on.
And as far as the airline side too, that they don't consider is there's a tendering. We say there's a tender time that there's an acceptance time and tender time. They're almost the same. Okay, I'm sorry. There's an acceptance time when you can bring your pet there, but there's a cutoff time that this information has to be inputted into our system. And that's usually a good, say, 2.5 hours prior to your trip. Now, you can bring the animal 4 to 6 hours prior to, which you should aim to do that. It's 6 hours, they're saying, for international trips. For domestic flights, for Delta, we're saying you can arrive 4 to 6 hours in advance of your flight. But you need to take advantage of that, because if you get there and the process takes a while, there's a lot of checks and balances with the process. It's not just simple as when we go check in the airport, whatever they do and they give us our boarding pass. Not the same thing when it comes to animals. It takes a little bit more time. There's a lot of things they have to do and make sure is in order. Number one, they got to make sure the checks and balances. They want to make sure the animals are in the appropriate container. All these different things we have to do. So it's not
and the paperwork.
Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork. So be aware, it's going to take time. Do not arrive, say, 2.5 hours prior to, when the cutoff window might be 2 hours prior to for that shipment. Remember, like I said, because then you're like, then they'll say, it can't go today, or and they'll be upset. You have to give time. It is not as simple as when we check into the airport and go through. It's not that simple. There's a lot of checks and balances.
And sometimes what zoos have a problem with is that we may have to get there at a certain time, but maybe the cargo isn't open yet.
Right.
And so you have to have a relationship with that cargo office and be in communication with them before the day of the shipment.
Right.
And be able to communicate a plan before you show up and have an arrangement with them. And each cargo office does not operate the same. There may be one acceptance process in one end of the country that differs from another end of the country. I mean, you have a small airport, a small cargo office, and they may be more casual about things. But if you have a large cargo office, they're going to be very regimented, very to the point, because they've got a larger volume of business going on. Whereas a smaller one may have more flexibility and be able to work with you a little better and allow you to maybe take your vehicle on the tarmac, because the larger one's got so much traffic going on in planes there, you can't take your vehicle out there. Or as opposed to letting you just drive out there with your crate, unload it, and sometimes you're allowed to do that, but you have to get special permission to do that. You're not just allowed to do that.
No. It takes actually they would never allow a person to go by themselves. You would have to be escorted to go on the airfield to do that. You would never be directly by yourself to do so. But I like what you're saying, because what you're saying is it's about relationship building. We need to be working together as a team to ensure these animals get to their destination safely. We're not just do this, we're working together as a team to ensure the animals get to their destination safely. It's important for us also to ensure they're safe in getting through their process. So if we communicate and understand each other and understand we're on the same team, I think things will be a whole lot easier in the process. In my role, a lot of things that I do, I've shared with you, Rochelle, I don't mind being someone as a contact within Delta Airlines, as far as if something you want to question, what have you, or if you want to know how to do something, that's perfect for me. But it puts me in a bind when I'm just notified when there's a problem. We need to have a constant relationship to work together to do this and everything. I'm not just a fireman letting out a fire here, or find this for me. That's not the role that I really intended for it to be that way. I want to work together as a team where we can work together and do this process together. But it's and it starts from how to do things. First, my goal is to honestly set up a system where I can alert every station that's involved with that transport, so it's coming through. And then we work, and then who knows, if you have ample time, maybe you can go connect with that origin station and management and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and just develop a relationship. But everything you do is going to have to build on a relationship.
Right. Yeah. Some zoos will actually have like a air cargo day, and they invite everybody out to their zoo and they take them behind the scenes. Or if it's a really high profile, like a giant panda, they'll get to come out and see the animal, or, or like a tiger that's very special to that city, that they had a lot of problems with the tiger and they had a baby, and the baby now has grown up and it's going at a breeding recommendation to another zoo, and they're trying to cushion the blow for the visitors. Oh, this baby's not going to be here anymore, but the cargo people want to know, well, where's it going? What are they going to do with it? So they let them come out, see the animal, and I even had a registrar at a zoo tell me that the cargo office supervisor would call her at home and say, we have one of your animals here, and I don't think they told you. After the cargo office was closed, that's a very special relationship that zoo had with that cargo office, for them to have each other's personal cell numbers, and that they notified that person at home after hours. So that's the kind of relationship building. It's just like, I always tell people, whenever they want to listen, it's like any kind of relationship. You have to work at it. It's like a marriage. You can't just be friends one day and it's for the rest of your life. You have to work on it on a daily basis. And especially if staff changes on our side, staff changes on their side. And if you have new people and you have the same curator, and they say, oh, we didn't have a problem last time, just go ahead and take the animal to the airport. Well, okay, there's a new curator, there's a new registrar, there's a new cargo person. Everything's new. So something new might come up that you've never had to deal with before. So it's always good to maintain that link, keep it lively, keep them engaged, and keep them familiar with your operation, your animals, the way you do things, and make it an annual event. Sometimes I think we think of foreign countries more than our own country sometimes, of relationship building, like oh, we got to keep this thing going in Africa or in Guam, but what about our own country? We have to keep it going in our own country too.
Right. I agree, definitely agree.
So what kind of tips or suggestions that you guys can give for preparing the animals for these colder months?
For some animals, I'm sure it would be similar with dogs or cats too. Wild animals can be, change their climate a little bit and kind of condition them with their climate. Like if you're from a warm area, you don't want to ship an animal in the wintertime to a cold area. So you climatize them. You ship them during a time of the year that if they're from a warm area, you want to ship them during the warm time of the year. Then they get there when it's a temperature they're used to, and then they climatize when the cold weather comes. If it's a cold weather animal, they're already used to the cold weather. And if you ship them during the cold weather, zoos normally try and avoid the cold and the heat, but sometimes it's unavoidable, and you have to figure out a way to do it. It's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes you just have to figure out a way to do it, and if you're in that situation, that's the best thing to do, is think of the animal, think of what kind of animal you're shipping, and think about how you can do that the safest way for the welfare of the animal. But that's something that's always important, is what kind of animal are you shipping? Where are they going? What kind of temperature are they normally best suited for? And if it's a polar bears love the cold weather. You can ship a polar bear in the wintertime and they're going to be fine. But if you ship a polar bear in the summertime, they can go into a distress mode because it's too hot. They've got their fur and everything. They have to be in a air conditioned building and a chilled water pool, so it's different for them. They get insulated. Their hair is hollow in the middle. That's why sometimes you might see a polar bear with green hair. It's because they have algae growing in the middle of their hair from being in the hot sun and not in cold enough water, and their hair turns green. So that's from not being in the right temperature water. So that happens to animals from not being in the right environment.
Right. Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I've always felt bad when I would go to zoos and I would see polar bears there, because I'm going in the summertime or when it's nice, and I'm like, this isn't natural for you. Like, they're just laying on a rock, like they're a throw rug. And I was like, I always feel so bad. So I can appreciate what you're saying with transporting them in the right times, but I always wonder, why do we even have polar bears in the warmer zoos? It seems like it's unfair. That's all.
Well, they have like chilled water. They have air conditioned facilities for them. They do keep an eye on them to make sure that they're not getting heat stressed and stuff like that. Sometimes they even have like ice machines or snow machines where they can make artificial environments for them and have snow or ice for them. And they also give them like frozen treats and stuff like that. So there are things that they can do to manipulate their environment for them to make it a little bit more comfortable. But they do tend to be held primarily because it's also more cost effective for a zoo up north to have polar bears, because it's more effective for their environment to spend less money to make an artificial one.
Right. What about exotics? What are some challenges with the cold weather that in transporting exotics?
Well, like reptiles, they're usually shipped in containers that have styrofoam inside, and they even will put those warming, excuse me, those warming devices. But you got to check with the airline what you're allowed to put inside.
That's definitely true. Got to make sure it's compliant. The airlines are you think about for safety and everything. You put something in the shipping container of any type of animal, and if it's potentially could be flammable or potentially considered dangerous goods, which imagine it could cause a fire and we can all go down. So there's specific requirements as far as what you can and cannot put inside the shipping container. So check with the airlines in reference to that. I think
Yeah.
what you're talking about is those hand warmer type things. I have seen
That,
those utilized.
and there's also I don't know how long they last. Well, and sometimes, like if it's a cold thing, they use dry ice sometimes, and that's really, that's a dangerous.
That's careful.
You have to get permission to do that.
Yeah.
If it's a short transport, like you're doing a ground transport, you can, be in a closed vehicle, or like if you're hand raising a baby and you're going from work to home, you can even put like a water, like one of those water bottle, I forget what you call them, but
you can do your own ice pack almost kind of thingy. That would be ideal too.
Ice pack or a water bottle, like a warm water bottle with hot water in it. But it's got to be under something, or a pig warmer that's kept warm. But you got to be careful that they're not directly on it, because just like with, a baby or anything, if you have like a warming pad, or a warming blanket, it can be dangerous too. So you have to know what you're doing with whatever you use. You can't just one and done. You can't just put something in there and not pay attention to it. It's a constant observation that you have to do at all times, and know what's appropriate for what type of transport, what type of animal, what type of situation.
Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely. So we've got a big banner here. Let's see. On my side, it doesn't look like it's showing up.
Oh, I see it.
Okay, so let's see. Airline reservations and zoo. I'm sorry. Airline reservations.
No, I was just saying start to finish. Really, honestly, it's a lot involved with it, and folks have to realize it. I always go back to saying to folks, and Rochelle, you've heard me say it. Airlines are not like a UPS company where you just give it a package and then they're supposed to just take it. There's so many variables. Number one, as a shipper, you need to make sure it's in a compliant container. So we're not responsible for that. The shipper is responsible for making sure it's in a container that's going to keep the animal inside, protected hopefully from any temperature extremes, and also protect the person who's carrying it as well. You don't want to put it in something that it's difficult for our cargo staff to carry the animals too. So you got to make sure it's the appropriate type of container. Trying to think what else I would say. And then also, it's not as simple as this package goes on this aircraft and it should go forward. Every aircraft is different on their capabilities to transport live animals. Some may have ventilation, some may not. Well, you want your animals to be in the ventilated section, right? So there's certain criteria for the aircrafts. So if you schedule on this aircraft and then something happens and that aircraft says your animal's offloaded, well, it was most likely because there was a mechanical something with the aircraft. So now they have to rebook your animal on a flight that has the capacity to take it and the ability to take it. So it may not be as simple as you might think. Now, when we get think about when we're on a plane, if they change aircrafts and they're changing aircrafts on us and we don't realize it, they might have a gate change. We go to a different gate and it might be a different aircraft that we're going to initially get on, but we don't know the difference. We just know we're going to get on a different plane. Right. But and I say that analogy is because it's not the same for animals. The aircraft change, if it happens, that aircraft has to have the capacity and the ability to transport animals. So just be mindful of that.
Right. And our crate sizes sometimes can be larger than the opening of the door to get the crate in the cargo. So as she was saying, if they change the plane and there's a flight change, that's why zoos typically like to have one flight, one plane, and not make a change, because then they know that animal's going to make the flight, that they're going to not be switched, because if there's a possibility it's switched, there's a possibility it can't go, because it might get stuck with a different size plane and it can't be loaded. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong. It
Yes.
seems like a simple process, but
It-
and certain species
it's
like
not.
Delta is the only airline that will take venomous reptiles.
Yes. Right.
Zoos cannot ship any venomous reptiles on any other airlines besides Delta. And
Wow.
so that's
Yeah.
very important for us, especially,
Yeah.
if people don't realize there's lizards, snakes, all different kinds of species. There's aquatic species that are considered venomous. If you want to go to the aquarium and see a certain type of octopus, a blue ring, I think it's called octopus, they're venomous. It has to be on an airline that will ship it. So that's why a lot of times aquariums will ship their own animals, because their shipping process is so detailed and specific
Mhm.
that it's a lot easier for them to do their own shipping.
Yeah.
Wow.
Definite. Whew.
Well,
Trust me, I can go down. I can say more on that. Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing quick on that, because I know today, folks, we're gonna have to cut it short because we all have meetings to attend in a few moments. But my add on that, Rochelle, is that one issue that I've noticed, and I don't think it's zoos. I think it's for folks that other folks that ship venomous or poisonous reptiles. They must ensure that they label label their containers properly, and give us the scientific and common name of that animal, because God forbid if there's a bite or any exposures, for the safety of the folks handling the animals, please let us know what it is so we can at least share what's in the container, because it's not always clear. It's not always clear, and their life is at stake with this. So that's, again, it has to be the proper container that keeps the animal within, and also safety for the person transporting the animal. So, and then, like I said, then label properly so that if something happens, we can alert the authorities of the proper. Hopefully, they can get the proper treatment based upon knowing the scientific and common name. So, yeah,
exactly.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, as Dr. Bryant indicated, we got to wrap up early just because we all have other obligations coming up in a few minutes. But we just wanted to say thank you so much, Rochelle, for joining us again and sharing all of this fantastic information, which I did not know. I was just absorbing everything. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rochelle, and thank you, everyone. Any final words you want to say, Rochelle? We love having you here. Anything before we leave?
I enjoy this time with you guys, and I hope people are getting something out of it. I hope that they're enjoying hearing about it. And just because they're shipping a dog or a cat or another type of pet, it's a very similar type thing. And there are types of dogs that are in complicated transport situations too, just like exotic animals. So a lot of the similar things will apply to them as well.
Definite. Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for joining us for another Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next episode. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye. You stay, Rochelle.
Okay.